Hey everybody, this is Steve. Let me ask you a question. I always ask you a question. Do you come to a task, a creative task, and just freeze up? You know, like you pick up the pen to write and your brain just freezes. Or that you come to the keyboard and you lift your fingers up and the words just don't come. Well, look, don't worry. I think it happens to all of us. It happens to me. It definitely happens to all of us. In this video, I'm going to be sharing some of the ideas that I've come across over the years as a coach that people use to overcome that creative block and that writer's block and be able to start moving. And stay with me to the end, because I think the very last thing I've got will surprise and amuse you. It's really off the wall, it's counterintuitive, but it's also really good. But why listen to me when I've already confessed to you that I get creative block just as much as anybody? Well, maybe not just as much as anybody, but I certainly get it. Well, the thing is, yes, but I've also studied coaching. I've studied aspects of psychology. I've put them into practice. I've been on the receiving end of coaching, and I have learned and used and applied ideas that work. And by the way, just before I get into the meat of this, if this is the kind of content you like, please hit that like button, please subscribe, please hit that notifications bell. Now, the first tip is really simple. Relax and slow down. When you feel stuck, there is nothing worse than psychologically pushing harder. Generally doesn't work. Let's use a metaphor. Let's say that there's a sort of creative plumbing that goes on. If that creative plumbing is all stopped up, then pushing harder on it isn't going to get it moving. The thing to do at that point is to flex it, to relax it. Whatever muscles you feel tightening in your body, because when we are locking up, you'll notice there's a tightening in the body as well as in the mind. Wherever you're tightening up in the body, relax that part. If it's in the shoulders, let them relax and drop. If it's in the forehead, then just relax around the eyes and let that unfold. And also put your attention on your breathing. Breathe slower, breathe deeper. Notice the breathing going down into the center of your body, and that will help you relax. And that will help relax the creative plumbing system as well. The second thing is to just move that pen or just hit that keyboard. Might sound strange. There's a mentor, a coach, who I really admire. I've never actually met him personally, but I really admire his work. He's called Steve Chandler. And he said something a long time ago which really resonated with me. Now, it was actually about motivation rather than creativity, but it crosses over. His actual comment is, motivation is not the prerequisite for taking action. It's the result of taking action. What that's really pointing at is, again, creativity is not the prerequisite of writing. It's the result of writing, or whatever the creative task is. Let's look at the problem as if the problem is that we're still, and we've got to start getting some momentum. Because once we have momentum, it's easier to keep going. So how do we create momentum from still? Look, just write something even if it's bad. In fact, maybe even make it an exercise in writing something bad. It's like, look, I'm just going to write a page. I'm going to try to write the worst page possible, but just to get some creative momentum, just to get off of still. The same idea comes up in brainstorming, if you've ever learned that. I mean, imagine if you're putting ideas on post-it notes and putting those post-it notes up on the wall. The idea to get some creative momentum is to not care about whether what you're putting on the post-it notes is good. Just put whatever comes to mind on the post-it note, even if it's rubbish. Put what comes to mind, slap it up with everything else. You might not use those ideas, but again, it's about generating creative momentum. Sometimes it is better to just go and do something different. Just go and do something else. Let your unconscious mind work on it while your focus is elsewhere. I've got to tell you, I often get my best ideas when I'm doing something else, when I'm gardening, when I'm hoovering the lounge, when I'm cleaning the bathroom, when I'm ironing my shirts. Sometimes that's when the ideas come to me. And one of the most powerful ways to let our unconscious processes sort themselves out is actually with sleep. So sometimes the best thing to do is just go to bed, go to sleep, let all those things that happen during sleep, about organizing your memories and things like that, let all that happen. And very often you wake up in the morning with a new, clear idea because your unconscious mind has been processing it while you sleep. Another trick that comes up a lot is to give yourself a deadline. Now that sounds paradoxical, I know, because I've just been talking about how you stop pushing harder, how you relax rather than put pressure on yourself. Well, look, the ideas that I'm showing in this video, the idea isn't that they're the same idea or all related to the same idea. Sometimes when something isn't working, do its opposite. So if relaxing isn't working for you, if just moving the pen or just typing things or just creating post-it notes isn't working for you, then try this technique. Try the idea of giving yourself a deadline. Because, if you've got a real deadline, I mean, some people who write professionally, like a journalist who's got to get his articles submitted in time for printing, that person has not got time to overanalyze. That person hasn't got time for perfectionist paralysis. They've just got to get their thing down on paper and get it submitted in time. I've often found, though, that if I've sat down and said, I've got 1 hour and that's all I've got, I definitely approach it differently to when I think I have an indefinite end time. Now, I promised you an off-the-wall idea, and this is it. It's to use a psychological technique called the Zeigarnik Effect. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not 100% sure that I am, if I'm honest with you. There was a Lithuanian psychologist, Bluma Zeigarnik, who first published about this effect in a book called On Finished and Unfinished Tasks in 1927. The finding was that people who were given a task but did not complete it versus people who were given the same task and completed it, when you interviewed them about that task the next day, the people who had not completed it had much greater retention about what the task was and what they were doing, whereas the people who had finished it had much less retention. The suggestion is that if we have an incomplete task, it's like we have a memory cache where we store information about this task for when we come back to it, whereas when we finished it, it's like we clear the cache. So the way that you can utilize this effect to overcome creative block is to leave things unfinished, and that's what's slightly counterintuitive about it. So many things are based on get to a convenient finish point before you put it down. This is saying don't get to a convenient finish point. Actually leave it half done. So if it's time to finish your writing for the day and go to bed, if you're going to utilize the Zeigarnik effect, you're going to do something like leave the sentence you're writing unfinished, leave the paragraph unfinished, or leave the chapter unfinished, depending on what chunk size you're working at. Because what that means is there's going to be some retention of where you were, so that when you get up in the morning, you're not showing up to work with an empty cache. You're showing up to work with a full cache. You know what you're in the middle of, and it's easier to get going again. It's easier to get momentum because you were already in the middle of something. Now, please let me know about your experience of using any of these techniques. Have you tried the Zeigarnik effect, for example? How do deadlines work or not work for you? What have you found that relaxes that creative plumbing? Please do comment. I'll reply to as many comments as possible. If you liked it, please like this video. It really helps me that you like this video because it means other people get to see it as well. Please share it with your friends if you think this would be useful to them. But most of all, please, please, please subscribe and hit that notifications bell so that you'll be notified when new content arrives.